जी नमस्कार, वेलकम टू द प्लेटफॉर्म। सबका स्वागत है, वेलकम है आपके प्लेटफॉर्म पर। डॉक्टर जे.के. तिवारी हियर एंड दिस इज द क्लास फॉर योर UGC-NET literary criticism and literary theory. Literary criticism and literary theory, these are the two separate parts, and in my last class we discussed a few questions that were asked in June 2025 UGC-NET English Literature Examination. Today I am continuing the same chapter with you. Today we will discuss a few more questions along with the theories, along with the criticism, critical aspects as well as theoretical aspects will be discussed in today's session as well. I hope your preparation would be going on properly, would be going on fantastically. Let's begin. जी, हुदा, पूजा, जूली, गुड इवनिंग टू एवरीवन, ऑल ऑफ यू, सबका वेलकम है, सबका स्वागत है। शुरू करते हैं आज के आपके सेशन को। बहुत अटेंटिवली, बहुत ध्यानपूर्वक सेशन को सुनिएगा। यही सेशन आपके पेपर में आपके काम आएगा। राइट, आपका पेपर आपका है और आपका काम ये वीडियो करेगा आपके एग्जामिनेशन में। Definitely you will get questions and you will get insights from the class. दोनों आपको यहां से मिलना है, insights as well as questions. This is the question number 15 from literary criticism, and the question is, the term remainder has been first used by. The term remainder has been first used by. Remainder is not a new term. In mathematics you would have heard the name, but here in deconstruction this is a very popular term, deconstruction. And Z. Derrida is associated with this theory, deconstruction. And in deconstruction the remainder means the trace. The remainder means the trace. What is the meaning of trace? What is the meaning of remainder? It refers to what is left out. It refers to what is excluded. It refers to what is deferred, where meaning is created in a language, disrupting the idea of a text having a single stable meaning. Right? Having a single and stable meaning is totally disrupted, is totally rejected, and remainder shows that there is still a few meaning, there is still something that is not written. Right? It is the unspoken, the absent present element, like dark when we say light, like other when we say self, that makes meaning possible but also unstable, revealing fissures, contradictions, and the text's own limitations, always pointing to something beyond itself. Trace, the ghost of what's excluded. Every sign carries the residue of signs pushed aside to form its meaning. It prevents complete presence or closure, showing that meaning is never fully present or self-contained. Meaning is never fully present or self-contained. It shows how dominant terms like self, other, presence, absence, light, dark, speech, writing rely on and are undermined by their positions, by their opposites which remain within the text. It is white because it is not dark. It is dark because it is not blue. It is blue because it is not versus आप आगे बढ़ाते रहिए. Right? Remainder means the trace that is left out, that is excluded, or that is deferred, that is postponed when meaning is created in a language. It is a term from deconstruction, and deconstruction highlights footnotes, prefaces, and rhetorical speeches through the word trace, through the word remainder. Essentially, the remainder is the inherent instability within language, the leftover stuff that prevents perfect sense and which deconstruction seeks to uncover to show meaning isn't fixed but a dynamic, ongoing process. Right? Meaning is not fixed. Meaning cannot be contained. Meaning cannot be restrained. It keeps on floating. It keeps on flowing. कहां तक पहुंचेगी? Nobody knows. और फाइनली कहां पर पहुंचते हैं डेरिडा? That is called aporia. Aporia means deadlock. That aporia means deadlock. Right? Meaning is present. ये पेन है, ये पेन तो है ही है ये. इसकी मीनिंग तो पेन कैसे पता चली? क्योंकि ये क्या क्या नहीं है. जो भी एक्सक्लूडेड है वही रिमाइंडर है, वही लेफ्ट ओवर है, वही ट्रेस है डिकंस्ट्रक्शन में. इज इट ओके? डिकंस्ट्रक्शन, दो थ्योरीटिशियन डिकंस्ट्रक्शन के कौन है इसमें यद्यपि ये भी डिकंस्ट्रक्शनिस्ट है, बट ये टर्म जो है जैक डेरिडा का है. रिमाइंडर, ट्रेस, अपोरिया, राइट, मेटाफिजिक्स ऑफ प्रेजेंस, फोनोसेंट्रिज्म, लोगोसेंट्रिज्म, ये सब डिकंस्ट्रक्शन के टर्म्स हैं एसोसिएटेड विद जैक डेरिडा. और एक दिन पूरी एक रिविजनरी क्लास डिकंस्ट्रक्शन पर करेंगे. सो ईच पॉइंट विल बी परफेक्टली क्लियर टू यू. नाउ I come to the next topic, next question. The term remainder was first used by Jacques Derrida in works such as of grammatology. Of grammatology was the work written in French by Jacques Derrida and later it was translated into English by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. And Writing and Differences, another work. In its deconstruction theory, Derrida uses the idea of remainder to refer to what exceeds or undermines binary oppositions, challenging the idea that meaning can never be fully present or self-contained. Alright, now the next question. Who is of the opinion that the concept ideology is the most important conceptual category in cultural studies? Ideology is the most important conceptual category in cultural studies, and answer is once again given here. The correct answer is B. Graham Turner. What is his view? The most important conceptual category in cultural studies is ideology. Ideology always play a vital role in constructing culture, in constructing society. What the culture we have has been made by our ideology. Ideology plays a vital part in structuring, restructuring, in constructing, in deconstructing our culture, our environment, and each and everything. Graham Turner is known for emphasizing that ideology is central to cultural studies. He argues that ideologies shape our understanding of culture and society, influencing how media and texts are interpreted. This perspective highlights the significance of ideology in analyzing cultural phenomenon and understanding its impact in various spheres. Next question. Here are a few statements given from feminism and gender studies. Read the statements and pick the correct ones. Choose the most appropriate answers from the options given below. I hope the screen is clearly visible to you. So is the question. जी सारिका नमस्ते। फेमिनिज्म इज कंसर्न विद द मार्जिनलाइजेशन ऑफ women in patriarchal culture. Is it okay? एक क्वेश्चन है, फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट है। Statement B is feminist critics explain how this subordination of women is reflected or challenged by literary texts. They examine the experiences of women of all races, classes, sexual preferences, and cultures. Mary Wollstonecraft defines 4 models of sexual difference: biological, linguistic, psychoanalytic, and cultural. Feminist critics' goals to expose patriarchal premises and resulting prejudices, to promote the discovery and re-evaluation of literature by women, and to examine social, cultural, and psychosexual contexts of literature and literary criticism. Simone de Beauvoir prefers womanism to feminism. सिमोन de Beauvoir प्रेफर करती है वुमनिज्म को, वुमनिज्म का यूज करती है फेमिनिज्म के जगह पर सिमोन de Beauvoir. अब जल्दी आंसर कि करेक्ट आंसर क्या है? Read the statement again if you have any problem. Read the statement again and then click at the correct answer. Right? The answer is given here. You could find out. 2 statements are incorrect. Right? Because 5 statements are given here, and in option you have only 3 options: A, B and C, A, B and D, B, C and D, B, D and E. One thing is very much clear from the given option, और वो ये है कि option B is correct as it is given in each option. Option B is quite correct. बाकी पर बात कर लेते हैं अब। फेमिनिज्म इज कंसर्न विद द मार्जिनलाइजेशन ऑफ विमेन इन पैट्रियार्कल कल्चर. दिस इज द वेरी इसेंस ऑफ फेमिनिज्म. इवन फेमिनिज्म स्टार्ट्स विद दिस पॉइंट, राइट? फेमिनिज्म स्टार्ट विद दिस पॉइंट दैट विमेन आर मार्जिनलाइज्ड. वो मार्जिनलाइज्ड है, दे आर सप्रेस्ड, they are tortured, they are exploited by patriarchal society, by patriarchal culture. ये वेरी इसेंस है किसका? ये इसेंस है फेमिनिज्म का. और इफ ऑप्शन ए इज करेक्ट, इफ ऑप्शन ए इज करेक्ट, देन ऑब्वियसली ऑप्शन डी इज करेक्ट, बिकॉज इट टॉक्स अबाउट द सेम प्रीमाइसेस. क्या कह रहा है ये? The goal of feminism is to expose patriarchal premises and resulting prejudices. This one and this one is the same. It means A and D both are correct, right? A and D both are correct. B तो पहले से ही करेक्ट है, और अगर B पहले से ही करेक्ट है तो अब आप ऑप्शन ढूंढ लीजिए कि कौन कौन सा ऑप्शन करेक्ट है. ए करेक्ट, डी करेक्ट, और बी तो पहले से करेक्ट है. ऑप्शन 2 इज द राइट आंसर. ऑप्शन 2 इज द करेक्ट आंसर. इट मींस ऑप्शन सी एंड ऑप्शन ई आर इनकरेक्ट. नाउ लेट्स चेक दीज 2 स्टेटमेंट्स. Option E and option D. Sorry, C. First thing, Simone de Beauvoir prefers womanism to feminism. This option is incorrect because womanism is associated with Alice Walker, or you could say Alice Walker is associated with womanism. She prefers womanism instead of feminism. And option C is incorrect. It is not Mary Wollstonecraft who defines four models of sexual differences. It is Toril Moy, Toril, Toril, Moi, Moy. It is Toril Moy, not Mary Wollstonecraft, who defined the four models of sexual difference. And four models of sexual difference है biological, linguistic, psychoanalytic, and cultural. In your next examination, that is to be held in the first week of January, this question could be asked: who defines four models of sexual difference? Then your answer will be Toril Moy, biological, linguistic, psychoanalytic, and cultural. Earlier, once upon a time, one-liner questions were asked, but now 6 or 5 lines are given and you have to find out the incorrect one या incorrect 2, और कभी-कभी out of the 5 there will be only one correct option. आपको उसको find out करना है. जैसे जैसे प्रिपरेशन आगे बढ़ती है वैसे वैसे टफनेस ऑफ एग्जामिनेशन वो भी बढ़ती रहती है. Alright, now let's go back to the next question. Proceed करें. Having any doubt? किसी को कोई डाउट हो तो बताओ. Any doubt? Please keep on sharing the session. Share कर दीजिए. This class is for very serious students and definitely this class will help you in various examinations, not only UGC-NET. UGC-NET तो है ही. It will also help you in your DSSSB examination, in your KVS NVS examination, in your UPPGT examination, right? Everywhere questions will be there. There might be a few questions in your LT grade as well, because the syllabus of UP LT grade is so lengthy and there are a few points of criticism there. Now I come to the next question. Which of the following is not a distinct discourse analytical research tradition as suggested by Margaret Witherell et al.? Margaret Witherell was a professor in UK in Open University, and once she retired, she shifted to New Zealand and she became a professor in the University of Auckland, or she still lives there. Right? Which of the following is not a distinct discourse analytical research tradition as suggested by Margaret Witherell et al.? Answer is given here. You could stick at the answer, but can you understand? Can you explain each and every approach? आप हमारे एप्लीकेशन पर जा सकते हैं जिसका लिंक यहाँ पर दिया हुआ है, और उस एप्लीकेशन के थ्रू यू कुड सॉल्व ऑल दीज पेपर्स. आप सबको सॉल्व कर सकते हैं और विद ब्यूटीफुल एक्सप्लेनेशंस. सॉल्व योर पेपर, टेस्ट योर नॉलेज, चेक योर knowledge or check your compatibility for your examination, and you will get detailed explanation there, right? आपको explanation भी वहां पर मिलेगी. टेस्ट पेपर पे, टेस्ट पेपर is for free, you don't have to pay. Which of the following is not a distinct discourse? Margaret Witherell et al. Means there are at least 2 or 3 writers of the book. They identify several distinct traditions in discourse analytical research. Fausserian research is not considered a separate. Right? Ferdinand de Saussure, right, who is known as father of modern linguistics, his approach, his Saussurean research is not considered a separate, distinct tradition within this framework because Ferdinand de Saussure's work is foundational to structural linguistics and semiotics, focusing on language as a system that is called lang rather than as a social action or practice in context, which is the focus of discourse analysis tradition. Right? Discursive psychology, Bakhtinian research and Foucauldian research, ये तीन अलग अलग टाइप के रिसर्च की बात करती हैं. Discursive psychology is a recognized and distinct tradition that focuses on how psychological themes like identity or emotion are constructed and managed in discourse. Bakhtinian research is another distinct tradition based on Mikhail Bakhtin's work, which emphasizes dialogism, heteroglossia, and the multiplicity of voices in social interaction and texts. Mikhail Bakhtin was a Russian theoretician, Russian critic, and later he will know his terms like heteroglossia, like chronotope, like carnivalesque. Right? डिस्टिंक्ट ट्रेडिशन है मिखाइल भक्तिन के वर्क पर, जिसका एम्फेसिस किस पर है? डायलॉगिज्म पर, हेट्रोग्लासिया पर और मल्टीप्लिसिटी ऑफ वॉइसेस पर इन सोशल इंटरेक्शन एंड टेक्स्ट. एंड व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट Foucauldian research, it is a major distinct tradition inspired by Michel Foucault, focusing on the relationship between discourse, power, knowledge, and institutional practices. Right answer is 3. You have to find out the odd one, and odd one is the third one. मार्गरेट की जो बुक है डिस्कोर्स एंड सोशल साइकोलॉजी बियॉन्ड एटीट्यूड्स एंड बिहेवियर, co-written with Jonathan Porter, was very influential, particularly in social psychology. Margaret Weatherall and her colleagues outlined several distinct discourse analytical traditions commonly used in social psychology and related disciplines. These typically include Freudian, Foucauldian, Bakhtinian, and discursive psychology. Next question. There are a few definitions of novel, few questions on the origin of novel given. Read the following statements carefully and choose the correct option. करेक्ट ऑप्शन पिक करना है क्वेश्चन के ऑप्शंस पढ़ने के बाद. पढ़िए जरा देखें. आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स वंस अगेन. Mikhail Bakhtin, the Russian critic, he wrote many books, and basically he is known for heteroglossia, that is called multiplicity of voices. In postmodernism, the same thing is almost same as intertextuality, and he is known for dialogism, right? And according to him, novel is the product of dialogues, right? Mikhail Bakhtin did trace the roots and historical development of the novel back into imperial Rome and ancient Hellenistic romances, highlighting the origins of novelistic features like polyglossia and dialogism. Right, polyglossia, dialogism, यही इनके फीचर्स हैं. मार्गरेट एंडूडी in her work The True Story of the Novel, मार्गरेट एंडूडी का वर्क है The True Story of the Novel. The True Story of the Novel, right? the works are very important because अगर यहां से क्वेश्चंस बना है तो नेक्स्ट टाइम फिर यहां से क्वेश्चन बन सकता है. द ट्रू स्टोरी ऑफ द नॉवेल में मार्गरेट एंड डूडी आर्ग्यूज दैट द नॉवेल हैज डीप रूट्स इन द लिटरेरी ट्रेडिशंस ऑफ एंशिएंट Mediterranean cultures. Right? This statement A and C both are correct. Right? F.R. Lewis defines novel as one bright book of life. This is the incorrect statement. This statement was given by D.H. Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence का statement था, hence option D is the incorrect one. And if the D is incorrect one, then obviously option one is the correct one. F.R. Lewis did not define the novel as one bright book of life. That famous phrase is attributed to D.H. Lawrence. Right? Lewis focused on the novel's moral seriousness and social commentary in the great tradition. ऑप्शन बी भी इनकरेक्ट है. हेनरी जेम्स डिड नॉट कॉइन द स्पेसिफिक फ्रेज द एपिक ऑफ द प्रोजाइक मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड. ये उन्होंने नॉवेल के बारे में नहीं कहा था, ये उनका स्टेटमेंट नहीं है. बट वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन इज दैट जॉर्ज लूकस कॉल्स द नॉवेल द एपिक ऑफ द वर्ल्ड अबेंडन्ड बाय गॉड. द एपिक ऑफ द वर्ल्ड अबेंडन्ड बाय गॉड ऐसा वर्ड है ये नॉवेल जहां पर अब ईश्वर नहीं रहते. ये जॉर्ज लूकस का स्टेटमेंट था एंड दिस इज आल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. ऑप्शन ए, सी एंड ई आर करेक्ट. इन अ फ्यू बुक्स you could also find that B option is also correct, and B option is also correct means right. A few scholars think that only one option is incorrect and that is option D, but उसी के बेस पर हमने कहा कि D गलत है, तो जो बचा है वही करेक्ट है. क्लियर? नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. नाउ मैच list A with list 2. 4 phrases are given here and 4 critics are given in the next list. You have to match them. जिसे आप जानते हो पहले उसे मैच करिए, जो बचेगा मैं मैच कर दूंगा. करो फटाफट. किसी भी चीज को हम दो टाइप से डिस्क्राइब करते हैं. एक थिन डिस्क्रिप्शन होता है और एक थिक डिस्क्रिप्शन होता है. Thin description and thick description. Do you know the difference between thick description and thin description? What is thick description and what is thin description? Thick description, a concept developed by anthropologist Clifford Geertz. Clifford Geertz का टर्म है ये. One is associated with food and it is a qualitative research method providing deep contextual accounts of human action to reveal their cultural meaning, going beyond simple observation. Simple observation is thin observation, and contextualized accounts of human action to reveal their cultural meaning, going beyond simple observation to include the social, historical and symbolic layers that make an action significant to insiders. ये क्या है? ये है कैसे मीनिंग? ये मीनिंग है thick description. It involves detailed observations, interpretation of context, who, what, where, why, and understanding the actor's perspective, allowing outsiders to grasp the complexity and meaning behind seemingly simple behaviors, like distinguishing a twitch from a wink from a parody. It emphasizes that action only makes sense within their specific cultural setting, that is thick description. It describes not just physical action but symbolic, social and intentional meanings attached to them by people involved. The thin description gives surface level facts, while thick description explains the deeper meaning. Right? To interpret cultural gifts of significance by painstakingly detailing a specific event, allowing for deeper cultural analysis. This is the ethnographic goal. So, A is associated with Clifford Gray's thick description. I hope now the phrase is fine. I have explained it well. Transcendental signified is directly associated with Jacques Derrida. Vector and tenor, very simple. It is the two parts of a metaphor and it is associated with I.A. Richards, and alienation effect is the strangeness that was created by the German playwright Bertolt Brecht. Right? A is associated with 4, B with 1, C with 2 and D is associated with 3. Hence option 1 is the correct one. Alright, proceed करें. कोई doubt? Once again you have to match another question, and there are the names of the books are given and you have to match the book with the writer. Writer और book को match करना है. हाँ, come on. फटाफट, come on, come on. Thinking about women, the female eunuch, the dialectic of sex, the feminine mystique. Question number 21. Thinking about women, written by Mary Ellman, the female eunuch by Zermaine Greer, dialectic of sex by Sulamith Firestone, and the feminine mystique by Betty Friedan. Now click the correct option. Right? Click the correct option. I have given here the book and their writers. Right? Proceed correct. Second, fourth, third one. Second, fourth, third one. Option 1 is the correct one. Next question. Who amongst the following attempted to reconcile discrepancies between various classical authors such as Plato and Aristotle, as well as between philosophy and poetry? 3 writers are given here: Sir Philip Sidney, Longinus, and then John Dryden. And one is the odd one out, that is Neoplatonism, the Neoplatonists. You could click on the different one. You could click on the odd one out. Neoplatonists. Who were the Neoplatonists? Were they associated with the philosopher Plato, or they were the followers of Plato, or they were The students are teachers of Plato. Neoplatonists were a group of philosophers active from the 3rd century CE who developed a later form of Plato's philosophy that was highly influential in late antiquity, led by figures like Plotinus. They synthesized Platonic ideas with elements from other schools like Stoicism and Peripatetism, and are often associated with the more mystical or religious interpretations. Neoplatonism became a dominant ideology of the era, significantly influencing Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. What is the central concept? What is the core belief of Neoplatonism? The central concept is an ineffable, transcendent source called the One, from which all other reality emanates in a series of decreasingly perfect levels. The universe isn't a creation in the traditional sense, but rather an outflow or an emanation from the One. Everything that exists is part of this shell, returning to it as well. Neoplatonists believed that the human perfection and happiness were attainable in this life through philosophical contemplation and union with the One. Neoplatonism had a profound and lasting impact on later philosophy and theology, with its ideas and language heavily influencing mysticism, Renaissance, humanism, and the development of Western thought. It incorporated Plato's idea, it incorporated Aristotelian idea, it incorporated all the existing idea to for the betterment of the world. Right? Attempted to reconcile the discrepancies between various classical authors like Plato and Aristotle, as well between philosophy and poetry. Answer is the Neoplatonists. The next question: who has designed panopticon and used the term as a new mode of obtaining power of mind over mind? बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट सा कंसेप्ट है पैनॉप्टिकन का, और वही पैनॉप्टिकन का काम आजकल सीसीटीवी कैमरे करते हैं, एआई भी वो काम करने शुरू कर दिया है। सोचिए फिलोसोफर्स कितने इंटेलिजेंट हुआ करते थे, और जर्मी बेंथम का एक कंसेप्ट है पैनॉप्टिकन का। जर्मी बेंथम वाज अ फिलोसोफर राइट इन 18th सेंचुरी और 19th सेंचुरी, और फिर वहां से ये मिशेल फूको ने लिया है, और फिर आजकल तो हमने बताया ही हमारे बहुत सारे इंटेलिजेंसिया इसका यूज करते हैं। पैनॉप्टिसिज्म, बताओ क्या है पैनॉप्टिसिज्म या है किसका? तो मैंने आंसर आपको बता दिया कि किसका है, होता क्या है पैनॉप्टिकन। कोई बताएगा? Yes, it works like a surveillance. जर्मी बेंथम एक ऐसी कल्पना करते हैं कि मान लो कोई बहुत बड़ा इंस्टीट्यूट है, बहुत बड़ा जेल है या बहुत बड़ी फैक्ट्री है, उसमें एक आदमी ऐसा होता है ऑब्जर्वर, जो एक जगह पर बैठ करके बाकी सबको ऑब्जर्व कर रहा होता है। एवरीबडी सीन बट नोबडी सीज, कोई देखता नहीं है बट हर कोई देखा जाता है। यही पैनॉप्टिसिज्म है। दिस इज द कंसेप्ट developed by first Jeremy Bentham and then by Michel Foucault. An architectural model है with a central tower and surrounding cells, allowing a single guard to observe inmates without them knowing if they are being watched creating permanent visibility. This is the work of today's CCTV. Right? The feeling of being watched compels individuals to monitor and correct their own actions, making power automatic and non-violent. बोर्ड पर लगा होता है you are under surveillance, right? You are under surveillance या CCTV is walking here, ऐसा लिखा होता है ना. That is panopticism. That is panoptical, established by Jeremy Bentham and then by Michel Foucault. Michel, Michel, and then Foucault. Foucault. Michel Foucault. Right? Michel Foucault ने इसको यूज किया. People police themselves to conform to norms driven by the potential or observation leading to normalized behavior. Right? It explains how digital surveillance, personal data collection, and social media create a constant voluntary gaze, making self-regulation feel natural or even plausible. Right? If there is a panopticon and everybody knows, then he will be alert, he will be self-disciplined, he will be self-regulated. Right? वो नहीं देख रहा है, but उसे देखा जा रहा है. यही panopticism है. The panopticon was a proposed institutional building design that allowed a single watchman to observe all inmates of an institution without the inmates being able to tell whether they are being watched or not. This design was conceived by the English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century, who described it as a new mode of obtaining power of mind over mind. दिमाग के ऊपर कैसे कब्जा करें. The French philosopher Michel Foucault revitalized interest in the panopticon in his 1975 book Discipline and Punish. Foucault used the panopticon as a way to illustrate the proclivity of disciplinary societies subjugate its citizens. The next term is chronotope. The term chronotope has been coined by the most cheap question आप कह लीजिए. क्रोनोटोप किसका टर्म है? Option A is the correct one. Ji Prashanjit, absolutely. मिकाइल बक्तिन. मिकाइल बक्तिन का टर्म है क्रोनोटोप. And chronotope is the fusion of time and space. It is the fusion of time. Chrono means time, or top means space. Fusion of time and space in a literary work where time and space are not just a background but are inextricably linked and actively shape the narratives, characters, and plot. The term comes from the Greek word time, that is chrono, chronology, chronicle, and topos means place. Bakhtin argued that the chronotope is the fundamental unit for analyzing a literary text, revealing how social, cultural, and historical factors are embedded within the fabric of a story. Right? Time and space cannot be separated. They are always intertwined and mutually dependent in a given text. The chronotope makes the abstract elements of time and space artistically visible and concrete within the narrative. Next question. Choose the statements given by Virginia Woolf in Virginia Woolf about women. विमेन के बारे में वर्जीनिया वुल्फ ने अ रूम ऑफ वंस ओन लिखा है, फिर थ्री गिनीज भी लिखा है, और विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज द करेक्ट बाय वर्जीनिया वुल्फ? Once again, keep in mind that out of the 5, only 3 are correct. As in option, 3 options are given. She is born stupid and can do nothing but stupidity. She dominates the lives of kings and conquerors in fiction. She pervades poetry from cover to cover. She is all but absent from history. She criticized Shakespeare for being harsh and rude to his female characters in his plays. In real life, she could hardly read, could scarcely spell, and was the property of her husband. Choose the most appropriate options from the given below. Choose the statements given by Virginia Woolf about women. बताओ आंसर। डन, प्रोसीड करें। वर्जीनिया वुल्फ का ये मानना है कि महिलाएं जो होती है ना, वो फिक्शन में, नॉवेल्स में, स्टोरीज में तो वो कंकरर्स होती हैं, राजाओं का जिंदगी और राजाओं की विजेता होती हैं। पोएट्री में वो बिल्कुल छाई हुई है। शी परवेट्स पोएट्री फ्रॉम कवर टू कवर, बट शी इज ऑल बट अब्सेंट फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री। बस हिस्ट्री से वो गायब है। शी क्रिटिसाइज्ड शेक्सपियर फॉर बीइंग हार्श एंड रूड टू हिज फीमेल कैरेक्टर्स इन हिज प्लेस। ये सही है कि गलत है? In real life, she could hardly read, could scarcely spell, and was the property of her husband. वास्तव में उसकी स्थिति क्या है? वास्तव में उसकी स्थिति यह है कि वो अपने हस्बैंड की प्रॉपर्टी है और इससे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं। ऑप्शन 2 यहां पर करेक्ट है। आप ऑप्शन 2 के साथ प्रोसीड करेंगे। वर्जीनिया वुल्फ in her book A Room of One's Own discusses the historical exclusion of women from education and financial independence and their contrasting portrayal in fiction versus reality. Next question. Arrange फिर करना है। Arrange the following works of John Story in their chronological order of publication. अब जॉन स्टोरी को पहले जानेंगे, तब ना उनके वर्क्स के बारे में जानेंगे। ये सारे उनके वर्क्स हैं और आपको अरेंज करना है। आंसर इज गिवन हियर। आंसर इज 1, कल्चरल थ्योरी एंड पॉपुलर कल्चर एंड इंट्रोडक्शन इन 1993, व्हाट इज कल्चरल स्टडीज इन 1996, cultural consumption and everyday life published in 1999, Inventing Popular Culture from Folklore to Globalization in 2003, Culture and Power in Cultural Studies, The Politics of Signification was published in 2010. Arrange the following works of criticism chronologically. फिर से क्रोनोलॉजी बनाना है, कौन सा किसका वर्क है और फिर पब्लिकेशन के डेट के अकॉर्डिंग. ऑप्शन इज 4. मोर देन कूल रीजन, द रूल ऑफ मेटाफर 1977, मोर देन कूल रीजन 1982, मार्जिन्स ऑफ डिस्कोर्स 1983, डेथ इज द मदर ऑफ ब्यूटी 1993, मीटर इन इंग्लिश 1995. एंड if you are seriously preparing for the next examination, then you have to know the name of the authors of these books, कि इनके लेखक कौन है, इनको लिखा किसने है, right? इनको लिखा किसने है, इनका मेन कंटेंट क्या है. Which of the schools of criticism has strongly opposed formalism in both its European and American varieties, rejecting the view that there is a sharp and definable division between ordinary language and literary language. What is formalism? Formalism means form is more important than content, right? Form is more important than content. ये है formalism. Formalism thinks that meaning resides in words, right? फॉर्मलिज्म क्या बताता है कि मीनिंग जो पेज पर है उसी पर है और कहीं नहीं. फॉर्मलिज्म इन लिटरेचर इज अ क्रिटिकल अप्रोच, और ऐसा क्रिटिकल अप्रोच है जो किस पर फोकस करता है. क्रिटिकल अप्रोच है दैट फोकसेज सोलिली ऑन टेक्स्ट, इंटरनल स्ट्रक्चर, फॉर्म और लिटरेरी डिवाइसेस लाइक प्लॉट, style, rhythm, metaphor, or to derive meaning deliberately, ignoring external factors like author's life or historical context. Formalism thinks that text is autonomous. The text is self-sufficient. You do not have to go to sorry for the interruption. Text is autonomous, self-sufficient, meaning comes from analyzing words on the page and not author intent or reader emotion. Or it analyzes plot, structure, narrative techniques, syntax, rhythm, rhyme and figures of speech. And formalism seeks literariness, right? Literariness, it seeks qualities that distinguish literature from ordinary language, such as defamiliarization, making the ordinary seem new and strange, right? The way a story is told, its form, right, is inseparable from what it says, its content. Clear? ये formalism है. और which of the schools of criticism has strongly opposed formalism? तो सबसे पहले अपोज उसका करता है मार्क्सिज्म, राइट. ऑप्शन सॉरी 1, 2, 3, 4 और ऑप्शन 3 इज करेक्ट. B, C and D, right? In both its European and American varieties, rejecting the view that there is a sharp and definable division between ordinary language and literary language, right? Ordinary language और literary language दो अलग अलग टाइप के लिंग्विस्टिक्स की बात करता है. मार्क्सिज्म क्या कहते हैं? मार्क्सिज्म views literature as a product of its historical and economic context, directly contradicting the formalists focus on the text as an autonomous object. अब यहां पर देखिए, right? Reader response criticism emphasizes the role of the reader in creating meaning, moving focus away from the text's internal structure. Speech act theory analyzes language in terms of its practical use and function in the real world, challenging the idea of a distinct literary language. And new historicism examines literature within its historical and cultural framework, rejecting the formalist separation of text from external factors. And post-colonialism critiques literature through the lens of power, identity and colonialism, connecting to the text to real world political and social issues. अब इसमें जितने ऑप्शंस दिए हैं, राइट, जितने भी ऑप्शन दिए हैं, ये सारे के सारे ऑलमोस्ट फॉर्मलिज्म के अगेंस्ट ही डेवलप्ड होते हैं, सारे के सारे फॉर्मलिज्म के अगेंस्ट ही डेवलप होते हैं. एंड यू हैव टू फाइंड आउट एटलीस्ट वन आंसर. एक तो आपको टिक करना ही है. अब आप किस पर टिक करेंगे? एक कोई सा भी चूज करेंगे. यहां पर फिलहाल जो थर्ड ऑप्शन है, इट इज गिवन ट्रू. रेस्ट ऑफ द ऑप्शंस आर आल्सो ट्रू, but they are not in one option, so you have to pick the best one, B, C and D. Reader response criticism, speech act theory, unknown historicism all oppose formalism. Formalism's central idea that literary language is fundamentally different from ordinary language. Reader response criticism shifts focus to how readers use their own linguistic and personal experience to create meaning, thereby dissolving the sharp boundary between literary and ordinary language. Speech act theory जो है, it treats all language including literary as action performed within a specific context. This approach links literary text to everyday language functions like promising, questioning, challenging their isolation. Our new historicism क्या काम करता है? It views literature as embedded within the broader historical, cultural and political discourses of its time, using the same ordinary language and ideologies of its era. This completely undermines the formalist separation of the text from its context and everyday language. Right? Marxism or post-colonialism, they are critical of formalism for ignoring social and economic and political contexts. The next question. The notion of author constitutes the privileged movement of individualization in the history of ideas, knowledge, literature, philosophy and the science. Identify the critical essay in which the line occurs. कहाँ ये लाइन आती है, ये बताना है. Death of the author, what is an author, heirs of the living body, what is new formalism. देखिए, ये है UGC नेट का पेपर, जहां पर सिर्फ क्वेश्चंस ही नहीं आते, बट लाइंस पूछ लिया है फ्रॉम द एसे, कि किस एसे की लाइन है. और इफ यू हैव रेड द एसे थॉरली, if you have analyzed the essay thoroughly, and if you are not confused, only then you can click at the right answer. Otherwise, तुक्का ही सही होगा, है ना? The quote, the notion of the author constitutes the privileged movement of individualization in the history of ideas, knowledge, literature, philosophy, and science. Is from Michel Foucault's seminal essay, What is an Author? In this work, Foucault critiques the traditional concept of the author as the sole origin of meaning, arguing instead for an author function that operates within a specific historical and social context. Next question. Since the publication of Samuel Johnson's preface to Shakespeare in 1765, which of the unities have been regarded as optional devices available as needed by playwrights in England to achieve social special effects of dramatic concentration? Samuel Johnson, 1765, the edition of William Shakespeare's plays with a preface to Shakespeare. And in preface to Shakespeare, Samuel Johnson counts the merits and demerits of William Shakespeare's plays. Right? Or in the book, in the preface, it says that only one unity that is to be followed, or that Shakespeare followed, that is the unity of action. The rest of the two unities, unity of time and unity of place, were attributed, या were credited कह लीजिए या were attributed to Aristotle by Italian and French critic. It was not Aristotle who talked about unity of time and unity of place. All right. Arrange the following books in chronological order. Once again, chronology is given and answer is also given here. So no need to worry. I will share this PDF, this PPT on my channel, on my Telegram channel. You can get it downloaded, or you could download the entire text from the application. Once again, which of the following critics are associated with Frankfurt School of German intellectuals? I will let you know each and everything about Frankfurt School of German when I will discuss Marxism with you. Walter Benjamin, Max Horkheimer, Leo Lowenthal were all prominent figures associated with the Frankfurt School, which was a German intellectual and social theoretical school of thought. Lara Mulvey is the British feminist film theorist, and Travis Henderson is a fictional character, neither of whom are associated with this school. The term trace. अभी थोड़ी देर पहले क्वेश्चन कौन सा आया था? शुरुआत जहां से आज हमने किया रिमाइंडर, रिमाइंडर की बात की थी. रिमाइंडर का मतलब ही होता है ट्रेस. नाउ ट्रेस पर क्वेश्चन है. The term trace, which refers to the trace of the other, has been borrowed by Jacques Lacan from Jacques Derrida. यहां से किया गया है इमैनुअल लिवाइनस, सिगमंड फ्राइड, क्रिस्टोफर नॉरिस. ये ट्रेस वर्ड जैक लकान द साइको एनालिस्ट ने बारो किया है इमैनुअल लिवाइनस से. ऑप्शन सेकंड इज द करेक्ट. This concept is significant in Lacan's work, particularly in his later seminars, where he explores the ethical dimensions of the subject's relationship with the other. फिर से आ गया है, मैच करो. Following works of criticism chronologically: The Gender Trouble, History of Gay Literature, History of Sexuality, New Lesbian Criticism, Bodies That Matter. ये है उनका proper chronology. This is the proper chronology. History of Sexuality by Michel Foucault, 1976. Gender Trouble by Judith Butler, 1990. New Lesbian Criticism, Literary and Cultural Readings, edited by Sally Munt. Bodies That Matter on the Discursive Limits of Sex by Judith Butler. History of Gay Literature, The Male Tradition by Gregory Woods, 1998. Next. Arrange the following statements chronologically in order of their appearance in Aristotle's Poetics. When I start my batch for UGC-NET or JRF, I start with Plato and Aristotle. This question is from Aristotle's Poetics, and I teach Aristotle Poetics line by line, concept to concept. And you could find out a video on Aristotle on my YouTube channel for free, and you could go through before your examination. You will get each and everything in detail, and this question has been asked from that video only. The plot is the end at which tragedy aims. All the statements are correct. You have to make the chronology कि कौन सा किस chapter में आता है. As you know that the Poetics is divided into 26 chapters. Alright, and 14 chapters are exclusively dedicated to tragedy. In chapter number 6, he defines tragedy and he talks about the term catharsis in chapter number 6. And the question is, the plot is the end at which tragedy aims. ये बात वो कहां पर करते हैं, किस चैप्टर में करते हैं. Plot is the end of tragedy appears in chapter number 6, emphasizing the primacy of plot over character. And for Aristotle, plot is the soul of tragedy. Option B, a whole having beginning, middle and end, appears early in chapter number 7, defining plot structure, where he talks about the complex plot and simple plot. In C, unity of plot, right in chapter number 8, elaborating on the necessity of single unified action, जिसको कहते हैं tragedy is an imitation of एंड एक्शन, नॉट टू एक्शंस। एंड एक्शन की बात करते हैं, दैट इज द यूनिटी। Poets function to narrate events such as might occur appears in chapter 9, distinguishing poetry from history by its focus on probability and necessity. And in chapter number 13, the character's flaw, hamarsia, appears discussing the ideal tragic hero. Right? These are the statements A, B, C, E, D. राइट आंसर देख लीजिए क्या है, दैट इज 4। जी प्रतीक नमस्ते। अरेंज द फॉलोइंग वर्क्स ऑफ फेमिनिज्म इन क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर। द फीमेल इमेजिनेशन, द मैड वुमन इन द एथिक, लिटरेचर ऑफ देयर ओन, विमेन्स ऑपरेशन टुडे, प्रॉब्लम्स इन मार्क्सिस्ट फेमिनिस्ट एनालिसिस, रिवॉल्यूशन इन पोएटिक लैंग्वेज। दिस इज अ बिट चीपर। दिस इज द आंसर। Revolution in Poetic Language by Julia Kristeva, 1974. The Female Imagination by Patricia Mayer Sparks, 1975. A Literature of One's Own, 1976 by Ellen Showalter. Mad Woman in the Attic, edited by Sandra Gilbert and Susan Guber. Women's Operation Today, Problems in Marxist Feminist Analysis by Michelle Barrett, published in 1980. Who developed the concept of cultural circuit, which is important to the study of the interactions of culture and memory in oral history research method। देखिए oral history research method से क्वेश्चन आपके पेपर में इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में है और पूछ रहा है who developed the concept, Michel Conrad and Roy Harrod, Zygmunt Bauman and Robert Putnam, Charles Taylor and Elizabeth Wilson, Graham Dawson and Al Thompson. And the correct option is D, the concept of the cultural circuit, which is significant for studying the interplay of culture and memory with the oral history research method, was developed by Graham Dawson and A.I. Thompson. Thank you so much for attending the session, for liking the session and for listening to me so attentively. And now my request is please do share the session with other students so that they could also enjoy, they could also be helped through this video. These were the 37 questions on literary criticism and literary theory asked in June 2025 examination. Right, these 37 questions were from literary theory and literary criticism. In my next class, I will discuss a few more questions, and these are not only the questions, but you could say कि एक revisionary session चल रहा है, आपका revision चल रहा है, जहां पर your preparations could be judged. You can judge yourself or you can upgrade your preparation. Thank you so much for watching this session once again. All the best. Good luck. Take care. Bye bye.